Hello everybody, and today I'm doing a demonstration painting in acrylics of the view looking down from Ben Nevis. Been there last spring, and I love the feel of the darkness of the mountains. I love the feel of the clouds just almost touching the mountains. That's quite an unusual view, almost like you're on the plain, well, or on the top of the mountain. And I'm interested today in the playfulness of the highlights on the clouds and that drama developing there. I want to see the depths of the mountains as well, to help me out to show that vastness of the space. So I'm going to keep my image a little bit lower. Hopefully you have it from time to time. I'll keep bringing it up. So I've got a sketch here so far. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start just a basic sketch. I have a browny violet background. So I mix some ochre and violet with a little bit of white to have that darker tone. So I can build up the darks of the mountains, the warmth of the mountains quite quickly. And I'll start sketching. So I've done some of my outlines, or rough placements of some of my clouds on the mountains. And what I'd like to do next, I'm going to pick up a larger brush, maybe something like this. And I want to work maybe into some darks on the clouds. Now they're going to be lighter than my brown, but not the most light. But I want to start working, because I've got loads of dark on my board. I'm going to work to medium tones and highlights. So this is what I'm going to do. I've got my ochre, some violet, some ultramarine, bit of black, just to make maybe an indigo, and some white. And I'll mix some ultramarine and maybe a little bit of black, just to neutralize my blue a little bit, and possibly a dab of violet with it. Okay, that's gonna be too much. Okay, so let's do it more. So that's when I can mix extra paint. Okay, some more white, maybe a bit of extra water. Okay, that's better. And let's do some big shadows of these clouds. Now, for the first layers, I'll be doing now, the shapes will look to you as very light. The second I'll start introducing, well, once most of my board is covered, the shapes will start to become much more darker as other highlights will appear. So this is quite a medium tone of gray. Okay, that's quite a nice gray as well. I quite like working with a sponge and cloth, and I think maybe later on I'll bring those ones as well as my tools. But for the moment, I just want to have some quick shapes and see if they're becoming too repetitive or anything needs adding within the shapes themselves. Okay, some nice darks at the bottom. I think all that could come here together. Okay, some of these shadows could be slightly darker. So my paint is quite runny, reasonably soft in application. Lovely soft bristles on the brush allow me to put some nice shadows. I want to make these clouds quite heavy, They have a lot of light blocked and then behind them. So I think that will be a good to keep on them, to keep extra darkness for some of the corners there. Okay, I think there will be quite a lot of charged darkness this end. I'll keep varying how much violet and blue I'm adding to my paint. Okay, there's another dark tone. Okay. Also, all my colors are quite runny, quite damp. I can move from one tone to another, from one color to another. I can mix my colors a bit more, kind of merge the colors quite quickly. Okay, let's have a look. There's something going on here as well. I haven't got a great variety of color yet, but I'm moving gently from purpley gray to bluey gray. Black on its own, mixed with a bit of white, will also give me an exciting gray. So maybe at some point I'll use more of that as well. Okay, and something's happening there as well. Okay, for now I'll keep it a bit more simplified. So things are a little bit broken here at the moment. Loads of things happening. I'll start seeing them a bit better once other tones will start to appear. For example, if I'll add now a slightly lighter tone by mixing my violet and ochre, that will be quite a nice grayish warm cloud color. Classic combination of colors, ochre and violet with a bit of white. Again, just to have this cloud, it's going to be really almost like a foggy cloud for me later on. Maybe even blending into some of the mountains, spreading really softly. Let me see if I can add any more of that similar color. Violet and ochre, just mixing a little bit more of it. Anywhere else? Yeah, lighter tone could be a bit my hair as well. Some subclouds, small formations, how one cloud is going over another. Loads of change of warm and cool air, probably create all that one. We recently done study of clouds in our oil painting class. So if you've been doing that, you might have some relation to what I'm doing, using some cool colors and warm colors. Okay. Tiny bit more whites in there. So I'm filling up some of these gaps. And what I'll do next, I'll work into some bold colors of the sky. I can see a couple of areas, and maybe also somewhere in the back, close to the horizon. You can see some bolder blue. So I'll need to add another fresh color to my palette. I've got some phthalo blue. Okay. So some fellow blue. Oops, you can't see that. With some white. Okay, so that's a nice strong blue. And let's place it a couple of gaps. I think that's will need to stay a bit stronger, maybe a little bit dark. I think if I let some ultramarine, that might be a bolder blue. Just mix that paint here a little bit better. So my clouds will have to come around this blue a bit more exciting. At the moment, I'm just entering a little bit of blue here and there. And I think I might put a couple of marks, maybe just to see if there is a little bit more sky anywhere else. Probably will disappear, but having little gaps sometimes makes, if I'll paint over these areas with white or with paler tones of whites, will give me an opportunity to kind of have transparent blue in there. And I think here I'll work with some paler blue. So in comparison to the clouds colors, this is much more fresher blue, just a little bit of white and fellow blue. So that will get me some boldness of sunlight. I think that's what's exciting about seeing kind of being on the plain, seeing the mountains or any landscape above the clouds. We see so much light. We see that sunlight and give us so much excitement that it could be raining and the weather could be really bad or foggy, and above everything is so sunny. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit of light here and there. I think I can do with some extra, maybe light as well. And possibly some of the light might go gently down the slope. I'm just mixing it with some of my gray purples, just to have some of the ideas of light spreading down the mountain's edges. There'll be some beautiful light somewhere here, but I think it's going to be a little bit more warmer. We'll have much more ochres in it later on, and maybe some pinks, but for the moment, pale blues, maybe slightly exaggerated, but will come somewhere there. Okay. So immediately I'm changing the direction of my strokes, kind of the quality of the strokes, to narrow, short, from big, fluffy and soft. Okay, now my mountain here has a little bit of snow on the top, so I want to make that one standing out as well, but I think the light tone I put here looks slightly out of place. I think it will be better if I'll make it cooler, at least for now. And also I think it will be as well darker than I initially planned it. Okay, just get rid of all this extra light. And there will be some glimpses of other snow, just little lines. I think I can come back to that later on. And now I can see some of the darks. So I'm just looking for the varieties of blues, indigos, fresher blues in the mountains. And I can definitely see some. Okay, maybe that's more of an indigo rather than fresher blue. Otherwise it will start clashing with the sky. I'll just wipe it off with my sponge. Okay. So there will be vagueness in painting these mountains at the back. The loads of ranges of the mountains, they keep overlapping each other and disappearing further. Then the light brings them forward, then again they disappear. Loads of very playful marks. So I'll try not to overpaint my beautiful violety background, but at the same time, and now I can restore that color if I wanted to. And so far I'm interested into that lovely playful line. Okay, maybe I can do some darker tones. Somewhere here, you can see some of the segments of the mountains. So behind the front line of the mountains, I'm going to have which will be staying quite warm. I can see a few rows here, which are very cool. Light or darker, but very cool. Okay. This looks a bit of a pyramid shape, although it does appear that way on the photograph. I might need to consider doing something else with it. Or at least supporting it in other places. There's some nice darks, but maybe not as dark as that. Just tone it down. Okay. So the snow cap will contrast with the background, but it doesn't have to be solid in darkness. Okay, maybe a little bit of fresher, darker blue somewhere. Just gives me a little bit of idea of some of these ranges, some of the depths. Okay, and even possibly something close to me here, maybe from this cloud. A very dark blue, bluey black, ultramarine, and some black. Maybe there will be some shadows down the slopes, which make maybe part of my cloud here slightly darker later as well. So again, I don't know if I've got the right colors here or not, but the tones look good. Okay, I think maybe that will work somewhere here as well. Again, as I said, I might just have to bring some of them violets back. Just soften this cloud's edge. just soften this cloud's edge a bit more. Okay. Right, so some of the medium tones are done. Let's now add some of the highlights. Okay, let's wash this brush. So my highlights, I'll start with working with some of the warmer colors, similar I've done before, some ochre and some white, and a droplet of violet. Something like this. It looks very bright on your screen. It's actually not a bold color and not a very light color. So again, I'm back to that pale ochre and white. I'm going to find all my highlights. The paint will settle into the very dark background because the paint is diluted. When it dries, it will become darker, and I can work with stronger highlights. So far, let's just do some sharp blocking. I love this brush because it allows me to do some wide strokes and then move to very narrow and texture-like, yeah, very almost delicate little marks as quick as I wanted to. Okay, there's a nice block of light somewhere here as well. So I'm looking for pattern of light.
Julia, what brush is it that you're using?
So I'm using a synthetic flat brush.
Right.
So yeah, it's probably 2 centimeter width. I was thinking an inch, but probably not quite an inch. So just soft synthetic brush.
And how big's the picture that you're doing?
So the picture is, the width of it is an A2 size.
A2, right? Okay.
A2. It's not quite a full length, so I just trimmed to make it. It's almost like 2 squares fits in.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's quite an elongated panoramic format here.
Hi, Julia, it's Gaynor. Yes, I'm coming in on what you've just said. Because of the fact I'm absolutely intrigued by your fluidity of your acrylics, and watching you with the brush. Can you tell us about, where did you get the brush? What is the brush? I think that's what possibly you're trying to ask.
It's quite a cheap brush.
Well, I know, but
no.
I think what Gaynor means is that it's the way that you use the brush and how you actually are using it to create all those clouds. And when we come to actually paint, ours look nothing like that. It's the way you kind of move it and use it.
And how fluidity, kind of how light, not thick layers of that paint. Yeah, I'm just gently pressing on it and just almost like doing doodles, almost like creative signatures.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly working, but I get it from Yorkshire Purchasing Organization, just an old college and schools website where you can just register as an individual. So they're only a couple of pounds brushes, but most of the art supplies will have lovely synthetic, quite cheap brushes which will do the same thing really.
But your brush always looks as though it's completely loaded with paint, although it's not, and it
No,
goes
it's
on
very
in
runny,
such a
yeah.
lovely, fluid way.
Yeah, it's just quite runny.
I think we need a lesson in how to twist and turn the brush to get those strokes. You too.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay.
And how to load
Absolutely.
it with the paint that makes it look so soft and
Effortless.
lovely.
Yeah, you just don't overwork it, like you paint in, walls, or you have to paint a big shape or something. Clouds especially, it's just little dabs and drags, and the brush is just about touching the surface. So there's not much going on really in that sense. Okay, let's put a bit more. So there's a big mark. It's a lot of it comes probably from the Chinese brush painting. I think that's an easiest way to see what the artists do with how they hold the brush, how they move, what type of strokes come out of it. So I think probably I picked it up from all sorts of painting, from observation of shapes, as well as possibly Chinese brush painting, because it's just so fascinating to see how what they can do with it. Yeah.
So are we saying it's very, very light and very flicky?
Yeah. Very flicky. Yes.
Okay.
That's why you have to have that fluidity on the bristles. I keep adding a droplet of liquid as my paints becomes a tiny bit dry.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, totally right. So yeah, let's see if we can maybe have a session on strokes. But I probably need to see it immediately.
Yeah, we definitely need one of those.
Now we'll have to face to face.
Hold our pictures up.
Yes. Yeah, that will have to be the way. Okay, so I've got some very sharp contrasts at the moment, but I've picked up now most highlights, or most important to me highlights. I think I can do tiny bit of white here while I'm on this highlight mission. Okay. Soften that. Okay, so breaking it down into subtones. Let's just do a tiny bit more highlights here. That's gone too blue, maybe a little bit of warmth to it. Again, back to oak and violet, a tiny bit lighter, I think. Just don't like that straight line. I like that it shows a little bit more kind of the end of the close to the horizon, maybe the light, maybe the bottom of the cloud. Sometimes they're much more stronger in that line because of the air. Just gives it that very straight shape. But I think if I'll lighten up mini clouds on the bottom of this giant cloud, and that light line is not going to be too on its own. Okay, so that just softens it up. Same as these ones could be softened up afterwards. That's why I've been using a lot of sponge and cloth painting recently in classes, because it's harder to do it with a brush, but much easier to do it with any other soft material. Because it just instantly smudges in the most beautiful ways. but I can use a cloth and a sponge to maybe soften shapes up. I want to paint with a cloth maybe later on, but not yet. Okay. So that three-dimensional effect of the clouds is slowly taking place. So I'm subdividing my tones, softening some of the contrasts, just to come back to them again afterwards. That could be. Okay, just it's a little odd. If I'm not sure, I'll leave it and come back to it afterwards. Right. So some of the clouds are done. Let's work. Let's work on the highlights on the mountains. I love that little treasure corner with some warmth. Okay, some more tissue here. So I'll go for fresh white. I'll go for ochre and violet. Okay, violet's quite strong here. Mixing it on my board here, so I can also compare it straight away to my existing surrounding color. So it's dark and tone. So my area need to remain darker, or as dark as some of the shadows. So if I'll go too light, it will be too jumpy. Let's just put some of that light. I think that might be a bit too strong. Okay, I don't know if we'll see that, but let's place it there and see how it will sit there as a shape, as a silhouette. Once I can develop the rest of the darks around it. And again, if I'll have a bit more water to my bristles, at the beginning, the strokes will look quite bold, but when they will start drying, they will be much paler, sorry, much darker. They will kind of blend within that violet dark background. Okay, maybe something. So again, I'm diluting it with some water. I can add a bit more violet to it. There's a beautiful shadow is going to be meeting here. So if I'll just put a little bit of those lights here. And that shadow hopefully will support the light. So to make my shadow, I'll work for similar again, violet and ochre. But we'll also add a small amount of ultramarine. So it makes the color immediately almost black. Yeah, well, it's not black, but it's a darker tone. Darker color here as well. So those are going to be some more stronger contrasts for me for the whole painting. So if I need some precision with my brush, I'll add more water. so then I can move the bristles much more easily. Okay, that's given that mountain quite a three-dimensional feel now. That ridge is turning. Might work with some of the whites later on as well, but okay, so again, I want to see some of that violet left, although this is my darkest corner on the painting, so it's need to be charged with that contrast. The combination of violet and black is working beautifully. And I don't want to paint the whole mountain in the same darkness, even if it is all very, very dark. I need to leave some sort of support off in between tone for it. Okay, maybe a little bit of a corner of coolness. Okay, at the back, let's work for a little bit more darkness there as well. Just sloping those ridges, just coming out from the shadow. Oh, I'm getting slightly too dark color. Oh, just a little bit of hints on the tops. Okay, you can't quite see that, but let's see if it will change as the paint dries. Maybe I need to put lighter tones at the back and this area so they're not blending. They're different in color, but they're too similar in tone. Maybe I'll put some extra light behind there as well. There's maybe another valley with some extra light. That's better. You don't want to leave it as a line. I'll just spread it. And again, let it dry. I think some extra light could be topped up in this area. Let's just mix it a slightly lighter version. I think that might give me an opportunity to add even lighter tone and in the middle of this valley close to us. Okay, so a bit more stronger light. Now I think that original yellowy ochre, even if over exaggerated, I think that's will work as a little gem. Maybe I'll keep it exaggerated. And my clouds, I know they're not white yet. Maybe they will support me if they're even lighter. Okay, that's quite extreme. Exciting. Tones. White, I quite like that dynamics of that line coming, kind of those, no, not clouds, but I think that just color reaching out for certain areas and maybe getting lit up. These beautiful violets. Oh, that's a nice, lovely violet. That's, I think, the one I'm going to use somewhere here. That's it. Tiny bit darker as well. So I've got a variety of tones. So it's almost as it's coming out from that original background color. Has it been painted? Has it been left out? Hopefully, eventually that will be a question for a viewer to ask. Yeah, I think this section could still be a tiny bit darker. This little corner of a shadow. If I'm putting stronger ultramarine in it, let's just see how it dries out. Yeah, for the moment, you can't quite see it as strong. Again, I need to have that support of light behind it. So I'm tentative to make it too light, but as it's drying, it allows me to see its depths more. I'm also looking for a nice shape of that semi-oval. I want to make it slightly different. Don't want it to have like a kind of a very even shape. I want to have that depth changing. Maybe mountain springing up more confidently here. Okay, having a slightly darker edge on one side, putting some textures. And surrounding this light is too light. Okay, I think I'll need a smaller brush for some of the exciting little marks here. Let's just leave them there all together for the moment. Otherwise, the big brush doesn't do it justice. So something is getting slightly lighter. Okay, that's my brush just spreading some color. Not where I wanted to. Let's keep it as a big shape before I'll lose it. Big, big shape. Do some nuances of the tops. With a smaller brush maybe later on. Okay, so for now that will just stay soft all together. Okay, and that's good to come closer to this bit larger peak as well and let it dry as well. Right, let's come back to some of the unfinished areas here. Mounting at the front. I quite like having that brown there, so I might change the darkness. Initially planned as it is in the photograph to have a darker tone, mainly focusing here. I think if I'll put a little bit of darkness behind it, that will support it quite nicely as well. Okay, right, so let's stop with some of the contrasts here and let the paint dry. And let's work back into the clouds now, maybe with some cloths. So the shapes will start being slightly bold and stronger. Now, when I'm painting with a cloth, I need to have a little bit more space in the palette. So, for example, if I haven't got much space here, I probably need to pick up a fresh palette and then reintroduce the paints as well. So I've got an old cloth here. So what I'll do, I'll wrap it around one of my fingers so it's really tight. I'll hold the rest of the cloth in my hand, and that's will be just almost like finger painting. But it allows me to work, kind of almost feel the texture of the paint and how thick it is quite quickly. So I'll start with some tiny bit of off-white color. I just picked up, I don't think you can even see it there, a tiny bit of what's from my previous palette, some ochre and violet, but a very light volume of it. So very light in color with the white. So let's just find some extra whites. So now you can see that's glowing against my previous light shade, but still not the fresh white. I'll preserve the fresh white for much later. So let's just do some smudging. And by using a finger like this, I'm able to press with the nail, with the flat side of the finger, press and smudge, have very gentle textures and maybe little dots, maybe larger strokes, more concentration of paint. The brush will allow me to have much more thicker paint, and the cloth, I might need to have a couple of layers, or it's quite a transparent layer of paint. which is good for mixing those, blending those shapes. Because I'm painting already in the lighter tones, it builds up those beautiful highlights much more gentler. Okay, there are loads of things going on here. Okay, that's good. I think the brush is pretty good too. Right, let's mix some in-between tones now. So I want to get now some of my whites softened. I want to make some gentle amendments. I'll be dipping in and out of the variety of those colors I already had. Bit of violet and gray, bit of violet and blue, a little bit of violet and ochre. I'll just do a little bit of depth work maybe in the corner here, just to work a little bit more softer. Gently rubbing those colors in. Sometimes the color stays in the corners of the cloth around the finger, and it's, unless I mix it really well, it doesn't, it creates more problems than gives it an advantage. Okay, let's do some more depths. Somewhere here, I quite like that depth. So also applying the paint with the cloth allows the paint to stay wet for longer. Maybe because the volume of it is a little bit thicker somehow, or maybe how the consistency of it stays. Okay, I quite like some of that. And I also like the brush strokes as well, so might do a bit of both. You'll be saying, well, Julia, you've painted all of these shapes earlier on, now you're repainting them all. In some cases, yes, I will more or less repaint them all, because they already told me what I should be doing, because now I'm finding a bit more finer nuances between them in tone and in color. But some of the colors will remind me of what I should be doing. So for example, that browny violet color reminds me that I need to come back to it and just simply blend it with the existing colors. Okay, put the yellowy. A little bit harder to mix the paint on the palette with a cloth. Just gives. No, I don't like that. I think much more cooler violety blue is better. It's too orangey here. And what I can do, well, all of this is still a bit gently, still damp. I can use this new color to unite this corner of the clouds. And the similar color. Okay. Don't like that line. I like its shape altogether, but it's just ended up being very similar volume. Wobbly board. So this corner is now much softer than all those clouds, yeah, where they have much stronger contrasts. So that's the effect I'm trying to get. A little bit more acceptable to the eye, not to jump in its overall shapes. Have more subtle nuances, and the cloth allows to do that much quicker. Again, just see if you want to try to pick up some sort of fabric. You might have, oops, I'll pick up some bold blue somewhere. And just play with it. Just play with it on just writing your name, drawing some silly shapes of flowers, I don't know, daisies. Some very simple landscape. Just play with the varieties of marks, representative marks, not representative marks, sharp marks, soft marks. We always talk about the varieties of color and varieties of ranges of tone. So that's what happens to my clouds now. They're just gently varying because there's so much going on within the sky there. I'll work within my major shadows, and at one point I'll have to reinforce it, save some of the darkness will start getting slightly broken down by these little subdivisions. I'll need to reinforce it. I can see where I'm just lifting it by accident, catching it on my glove. Tiny bit of water and that color will spread and gain more exciting. I don't like that shape, but I think it's because I don't have enough supporting darkness for it. Loads of white is transparent there, so I'll have to wait for it to dry to start adding some extra darks, but I can work with some whites around it. Maybe bring some of the stronger highlights afterwards. Okay. Now what's happening, I've got slightly different mark making now in two different parts of the painting, yeah? So I think I'm going to start combining them now. I'll do a tiny bit more smudging, and I think I'll bring my brush back to have that combination of the best of both. The best of the cloth and the best of the brush. That grey could go gently back. Right, so let's just soften some of these sharp edges. So a little bit more quicker. So I'm looking for, okay, that's a nice shape, or it's a bit of a strange looking shape. I think it's a little bit strange, it just doesn't get us anywhere. And that's a little bit more obscure, but it doesn't tell us enough information. We can guess the rest. Okay, so that's better. Any other abrupt shapes, maybe somewhere. Yeah. Just simplifying some of them. And I'm also starting to see an overall picture of it. Some of the shapes are looking a bit similar. So that will be my next stage of trying to get that variety. Darker tone higher. Yes, the white is not as pretty now, but we can come back to it. At least the shape is changing. Okay, this part of the cloud is a little strange as well. I think I can work with some light, a bit more over it. And maybe we can have a quick break. Stretch our feet. Get some fresh drinks. And then I can look back with a bit more fresh eyes as well on more of the patterns. Yeah, I can start seeing some of the whites repeating in shapes as well. Yeah, some of these highlights are a little bit repetitive. So I need to start grouping them slightly differently. However, the mountains are drying quite nice. I've got some lovely depths to them. Still could do with quite a bit of tweaking there. But I think we're slowly making progress here. Tiny bit of light. Set a small amount of insignificant light, small amount of just texture within that light, within that texture. And that cloud is suddenly closer to us. And creates that fog over the mountain. I think that's what I want to do. To spread it, maybe a droplet of water. Okay. Oh, it's still fresh. Just don't want to have too strong contrast over these dark blues, but I do want to have remaining contrast. So I'll just wash some of it. So that's giving me an opportunity to decide if that's an option or not. I think I might do an option of another cloud, lower level cloud. Just a hint of it. Okay. So I'm back and using the brush. So I'll go for back to some of the highlights, bit of oak and violet. It's a bit bold at the moment. I'll just have it much lighter. So I don't want to go just fresh white. Okay. So some of the highlights I prefer to have stronger in its silhouette. Where some of them a little bit faded. And also I said I started to repeat quite a lot of similar shapes of highlights. So let's bring some of them back. Let's bring some of the boldness of the highlights back. as a silhouette as okay, so I'll go with the flow of some of the existing shapes, or maybe create some new ones. Okay, something. I might start using a couple of brushes in one go. So then they're both loaded with color. One will have more of a shadow color for my clouds. Another one has the boldness light, and I can adjust it slightly quicker. And also, while the light strokes are soft, paint is still damp, I can soften the edges there. Merge some of that. This is interesting to play. It is really playful strokes as I'm going from slightly lighter tone to slightly darker one. Okay, my highlights is back. Maybe I'll change the size of my brush now as well. So I can dig into some highlights a bit more intensively. Some brushes, unless you try them, you will know, can hold much more paint, much more thicker paint. And some brushes just drag the loose paint. We want both different times of the painting stages. But if I want some solid tone like now, my whites could quite happily come from application of much stronger paint. So, like in watercolor, if I could have just spread the darkness quite quickly by adding a bit more water. With acrylics, I need to have the extra color available for me. In oils, you can do it quite quickly because the paint stays damp for longer. In acrylics, dries quicker. My studio is lovely and warm. Okay. That's still a bold shape. Maybe it just needs gentler image to the lights. Yeah, if I've got a very sharp silhouette like white on one edge, this one, all the edges are very soft. So that's kind of shows the distance between them, where the light is more precise and where the light is hidden. We can only see the glow underneath. Right, those two shapes are a little too similar. It's a big, bold statement with this light cloud. So I think that one will have to go slightly behind. Yes, I wanted it to be a bit lighter here when I initially planned it. But maybe not anymore. Oops, that's very bold. It's just an edge. It will dry slightly darker here. It's almost like a wind dragging those clouds and gives it direction. Right, let's put some more definitions here. If I've done one side of the cloud here, I need to balance it with another side. So they're constantly together, they're constantly compared. Let's focus on this lovely corner. Now for that, first of all, I need to build my shadow. So everything is supported by its shape. So I'm going to increase that depth there. I'm not overly keen on the exact shape as it is in the photograph, but I like the idea of its depth. So I'm going to create my own silhouette for the cloud, slightly varying it from original. So the highlights and shadows will be in balance. So when I'm making something up, that's a try and error. Okay, for example, there's similar directions, almost like one shape's the same as the other, just slightly different in scale. In a way, they are repeating each other, but maybe not as obvious. Let's think about it. Afterwards, just bulk it together for now. Okay, that's already changing just by putting a couple of strokes. Okay. Add by that nice depths as well. Somewhere here. Nice depths. That's a bit too dark. A tiny bit more light. And I need to start bringing this cloud slightly lower. So it's will be quite heavy and touching, allowing some of these clouds to come lower. Okay, some of those silhouettes. And possibly even bravely lower than the rest, almost like a little fluffy, transparent, low-level clouds floating. Let's make a link with it somewhere else here. So I'm trying to have a feel for those shapes, not just on their own, as part of the whole environment. Maybe a little bit less of the clouds, more of the fresher blue behind. Slightly maybe lighter blue. And that sharpness now of the clouds, if I'll break it, then it will stop being a sharp mountain or a sharp bold light. Hopefully that will start being much more transparent, whispery type of cloud. And a little bit more moisture on the brush. Okay, let's just see how that's all dry. Maybe come back with some bolder blue behind them. So I keep looking for extra highlights on this section of the cloud to make it belong to the other shapes of that similar light. Okay, right. So I started on the shadows and moved on somewhere else. Let's come back to the shadows. Very easily distracted if something else could take your attention and you've gone back. Let's do some more shadows, reconstructions. I don't like that dynamic, just too boldly going up to stay. I picked up quite a bit of rough texture from the palette, I think. Yeah, sometimes it happens when paint underneath of the palette is drying, it drags some of the old paint. Okay, start having some steps. 1, step 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those are no good as well. Just block them together. Let's just group them. Shapes them. Lights differently. Support that light. Okay, see another interesting, well, not interesting, but the shape I want to get rid of. It's too precise. Too precise light. Mhm. I want to have a variety, but also want to have some unity. And I'll be playing with it till both are in balance. And that's better now. And just to unite a couple of these shapes here as well. Some of the bolder strokes with a brush, much more compositionally stronger. The smudges with cloth have their own place in this corner, so they're not too significant. So I'm constantly squinting, constantly trying to lean back. So when we're working from an artist piece, we know exactly what we're working for. The artist usually gives us that formula, that opportunity to depict the colors, to decide, it's already decided for us where the mark's gonna go, maybe where it's gonna be a bit more extra depth, so a bit more warm color, a bit more cool color. When we're working from a photograph, we're on our own. We have to make those decisions or prior to the painting. Well, I quite like that painting process to be the decision making. Maybe do varieties of paintings, maybe of the same style or the same subject, slightly different layouts and compositions. Just to know if that is going more successfully than the previous experiment. So is it going to be a final wonderful painting? I don't know till I work on it. Okay, something is now happening now, which is gently uniting my clouds. Okay, okay. Just mixing a little bit more paint to put some contrast at the back. Okay, now it feels like that cloud is almost touching it. If I just amend my highlights on it. Just softly blend them. So it just, is it touching? Is it just in front of it? Is it just behind it? Not too clear. But some sort of shadow is over this area. And definite potential of more details, working out if it would be a larger scale painting. Okay, let's just build up some of the shapes here. And maybe some more bolder highlights. So again and again and again, all I'm doing was in the first half an hour of painting, I work out all the big shapes. Afterwards, I'm evaluating them and amending them or just building them up. I'm working out within the first half an hour all my major tones, all my major shapes, identifying some of the supporting shapes. Slightly uncover my brush. More green in shape initially. Let's do that classic glimpse of the light on the cloud. I love that blue behind, but don't think it's strong enough now. Meaning in size, I haven't got enough of it left. Maybe I'll go for slightly fresher, wider space. Of blue. Tiny bit darker, just to match its current color. So if I'm happy with the cloud on the right hand side, if I'm happy with this one, that means that something needs to be done with the cloud on the left. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about its round shape, but I think I had that initial issue with it earlier, which I haven't resolved. Maybe the depth will be matched up with the shadow before the strong light comes in. There is light, but not so powerful maybe as I have it. Also, the time scale of painting, as I know I have maybe just over 5 minutes, it gives me less time to dwell on things. Okay, that's slightly simplified now. And then just a small highlight, but not broken. So if you do set yourself a time, I find it's teams all your energy sources. I quite like that one now. Teams all your resources together to achieve it. Maybe not fully, but to much greater speed than if you'd have not given yourself that challenge. So you might be seeing something I haven't seen yet because I focused elsewhere. I think this area is still not quite, slowly getting there, but still has its challenges. And all it needs is tiny bit of tidying. That's good. I'll let it dry to see if any extra highlights need sharpening or if they settled okay. Right, let's do a tiny bit more on the mountains maybe.
Julia,
Yes, Alan.
I know it's difficult with this painting, which is really complex, but can you tell me when you're doing clouds, do you try and do the ones that are nearer bigger and the ones further away smaller? Or
Yes. Yeah. Now, because the clouds looking smaller here, because those are the clouds really far away in the horizon.
Right.
Okay. Or some of them are just split from the big shapes, and they're the kind of foggy, misty shapes in front of us.
I see it.
Yeah, but that big one is an overall.
Can you make them bolder, the ones that are nearer then, and the ones further away less bold?
Yeah. So exactly the same as a person standing next to you, and further away it starts looking smaller. Same as clouds. You just need to understand where that cloud is. Yeah. Usually the tiny little dotty clouds are really far away, unless they're tiny little fluffy things right in front of us and we can see it because we're almost looking at them from the plane. Yeah.
So you're creating your distance, aren't you, by doing that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Julia.
That's one of the key elements to show that.
Well, it's really, it looks really difficult in this painting, I've got to say.
Yeah. In the way I wanted to kind of to be plunged in the clouds, to I quite like that soft, yeah. So it's almost like you can put your hand through it and you can't see anything.
Yeah.
What's at the front, what's at the back. I think I could do, yeah, there's loads of things going on. Could do with maybe still combining it a bit more, but I quite like the range of it as well.
Yeah.
So I'll play in my mind with that. Let's just do a couple of highlights at the back. I think that's why loads of artists are fascinated with painting bird's eye view. So just a slight bolder highlights here. Okay, that shape could go sharper down as well. And back to shaping up the mountain again. It's quite a small scale for my brushes, although I have much smaller brushes now. Okay, so how those clouds, again, that looks quite a nice fluffy cloud spreading that fogginess, because what's happened to us on the top view, on the top of the Ben Nevis, we just couldn't see anything. It was just big cloud covering the whole sky, and then suddenly the curtains opened and you can see a little glimpse of what's behind it, and then it suddenly closed again, and then it's opened elsewhere. And it's, by the time you get your camera out, even if it's right in your hand, by the time you just press the right button, it was changing all the time. It was like a movie, just a very quick changes. So interesting, fascinating. Right, a couple of more strokes and I'll be stopping for tonight. Just want to have that contrast evenly stabilizing that section. Okay, and I think that's still quite light. And want slightly more contrast here. That again gives a nice line behind. Mhm. Yeah, I'm quite liking that now. It started to give me an idea of further developments or further and other versions of the painting as well. And that highlight here. And also as an asset. That's even more interesting. Okay, maybe that is a bit too strong. Right, let's stop at that. So I probably will work as much as I like my clouds. I do want to have that depth showing more. So that cloud is really close to me. That almost I can't see some of the smaller clouds underneath of them. So maybe just summering them up with some depth. But I'm much happier of how the tops are developing, this angle, what's happening to the mountains. They're there, but they're not overly strong highlights. So there's still a few little bits to think about and to develop. But majority of the decisions have been made now.